Hello, everyone. My name is Marvi Rodriguez, and this is my presentation on Module 14 Interviewing for Radio. These are reminders for conducting a radio interview, especially a good interview. These virtues and tips to make a radio interview effective are by Lustria Tabing and Osalia from the material Production of a Print and Radio Development Communication Materials. I will also be sharing some tips that I have gathered from online sources, and I will try to apply those tips on my examples. The examples are based on a hypothetical interview, and it's with a flood control project contractor in the Philippines. So this topic is relevant and up to the minute. Let's start. First reminder for making a good interview is that the purpose is clear. The interviewer should be guided by specific information that they aim to get from the interview. According to 8PR, having bullet points in front of you that you want to cover is very helpful. And according to TJ Walker, making a thesis statement of your purpose in the first 30 seconds of the radio interview is necessary for both the listeners and the interviewer themselves. Now, a good interviewer begins with a clear sense of purpose. That means you know why you are conducting the interview and what information you need to obtain from your guest. Applying those tips, I would say, engineer, our listeners often ask how you attain flood control projects in so and so area. Could you explain how this bidding system works and how you get them? So my why is that the listener wants to know. It's about the audience always. And my what information is how the bidding system works. Second reminder is that there should be preparation and research, no matter how short the time allowed. So tapes and fully charged batteries are on hand, and enough of the basic information regarding the topic and your guest are obtained. Now, according to Consolo, you should research your topic and your guest because radio programs are usually live, unlike print interviews. And this is how I would show that I did my research beforehand. Engineer, we've seen from DPWH records that the dredging in Marikina River has been going on for 6 months. So, what progress has been made? How soon can residents expect improvement? So, I did my research beforehand as I've looked into the DPWH records, and I know the exact length of time, 6 months. Third reminder is that your question should be focused on the objectives. So remember that the question should be direct, short, simple, intelligible, and stimulating as well. Now, if you provide a background information according to 8PR using the phrase, but back to the question, is very helpful as you avoid going astray from your questions or objectives. And to show this, instead of saying, can you describe hydrological assessment that's full of jargon? So I would avoid that. And instead, I will remind myself that the objective is for the listeners to understand what's happening. So jargons are too much for average listeners. So I would say, how did your team decide where to build the flood wall to make sure it really protects the community? So I think that's easier to understand for them. Fourth reminder is that the discussion develops logically from beginning to end. It should be chronological. Now, according to 8PR, there should be a clear beginning, middle, and end. So you can start by introducing your guest and your topic, and then in the middle, you can gradually move to your questions and into a more detailed questions, and then finally, you can conclude by summarizing the key points of the interview. And to show that, I would begin with asking about the flood control project and its aim. And in the middle, I would ask about the material and technology. And in the end, I would ask how it can, how can the residents help maintain these drainage systems to prevent clogging. So there is a clear chronological order. Fifth reminder is that the audience is involved, so the subject matter should be relevant to the needs of the listeners, and you should elicit questions that the average person likes to know. And according to Consolo, you should be guided by these key questions. Who will be listening to the call? And what will they most want to know? What will resonate most for them? And to show that, my example would be engineer, many families in this area experience flooding every rainy season. What can they expect? And will it really stop flood water from reaching their homes? So I've mentioned my audience quite a few times to make sure that they are involved. Sixth reminder is that the interviewer should conduct the interview impartially. So it means that you should not make your personal opinions. And according to Inspire Sound Pro, the interviewer should not be argumentative. And because it's not about the interviewer, again, the objective is for the listeners, your average listeners, to understand what's going on. Now, instead of saying, I think your company works too slowly, I would say that some residents express concerns about delays in the projects. Could you explain what challenges your team encountered? So, in that, I maintained my credibility and professionalism. And it also allowed the audience to form their own opinions. Next is the interviewer controls the pace, topic development, duration, and mood of the interview. So according to 8PR, the speed of your speech is very important in this tip. So nervous people tend to speak fast, so you should speak in a normal pace. Now, remember that you are the captain of the conversation as the radio interviewer, and if your guest takes too long or goes off topic, you can gently bring them back to the topic or the objective. And to show that, for example, if my guest has been saying a lot of jargons or technical terms, I would say, that's very technical point, engineer. Could you explain in simpler terms how this part of the project helps keep the streets from flooding? So, in this manner, I am able to show that I am the captain of the conversation and I'm not going astray from the real objectives of the interview. Next, eighth reminder is that the interviewer should sound spontaneous and conversational. According to Adoni Media, radio interviews are like giving a performance, so you should be natural, spontaneous, and you should sound unrehearsed. So you can avoid sounding bland and flat. So in this tip, I would say it must be challenging working on site. So I would say that in a pleasant and genuine way. So, how does your team manage construction when heavy rains interrupt the schedule? So, I am talking to the guests as if we are on a face to face conversation. Ninth reminder, this is the last reminder. The interview should sound interesting. So it should hold the audience from beginning to end. And with this, Adoni Media share the tip that you should try avoid using jargon because you want average listeners to sound or to keep interested. And you should make punchy and concise statements. So, something that can capture your audience's attention. And to do this, I would say something hopeful like this. I can just imagine the excitement for the future. No more flooded classrooms, no more stranded students. So, engineer, can you tell our audience when is the project going to be finished? So, that kind of information would most likely keep the audience interested as it is about them and it's about their future too. So, those are the 9 reminders for making a good interview according to Lustria, Tating, and Osalia. So remember that a good interview is not just about asking questions, it's about communicating meaningfully, especially when we want to reach our development communication goals. Thank you so much for listening. Now, here are the discussion questions. Number one, in your opinion, which of the tips or reminders mentioned is the most important, and why do you think so? Second is how does making a good interview contribute to the goals of development communication? Why are we studying about all of this? Here are my references. I hope you learned something from my presentation. Thank you so much for listening and have a nice